Well, here we are. I've come out to a bit of a secret location, actually. I've come out to meet the one and only Max Igan. How are you, Max?
Hi, folks. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you come out here. Thanks for visiting.
Yeah, look, thanks for the invitation and thanks for the Crow House shirt. Very, very grateful and honour and privilege to come out here and see you, Max, and really get your thoughts on where Australia is right now at the moment. We've just had Freedom Day, which I guess across the nation had mixed results, but I'll let you elaborate on that.
Overall, I think it was good. I mean, I can't really offer too much of an opinion because I wasn't there. I didn't make it. As I explained to you earlier, I tried, but circumstances wouldn't let me. But overall, I mean, I think it was a good vibe. Some of the stuff that I saw from Brisbane, some of the encouragement they were giving towards the people of Victoria, I think it was good for the people of Victoria to see that level of encouragement coming from the rest of the country. So, but I mean, overall, I think we need to keep it up, not just do it that weekend. I think we need to do it all the time. We need to really push this and realise that it's not just going to be one event where we all go out and shake our fists at the government. We need to really do this properly and keep pushing back. And I'd like to see an event where we don't just go to like Botanical Gardens or the War Memorial or something. I'd like to see an event where we go to Parliament House and we call them out to accountability. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, you mentioned earlier some strategies how people can, I guess, use ordinary mainstream practices that the average person can do to push back and show that they're not going to participate in this technocracy that we're seeing rolled out. Can you elaborate on some of those?
Well, yeah, I got the inspiration from a Karen Brewer video, actually. She mentioned that we should remove service from these people, and it's a good concept, but she's saying police, but I'm saying everything. When you think about it, every business has the right to refuse service to any customer. So when you look at what's happening in Australia right now, it's become very obvious that the police are no longer serving the people. This is what they're doing in Victoria. This isn't serving the people, it's serving the government. And the government is no longer serving the people, and the media is no longer serving the people. So why are we serving them? So anybody who owns a business, they should refuse service to any police officer, to any politician, and to any media personality, because they have the right to refuse service. So, you're not breaking the law, you're not doing anything wrong, you're not hurting anybody, you're just saying, no, I won't serve you. They don't serve us, so why are we serving them? If media personalities suddenly can't go and buy a cup of coffee somewhere, or they can't go to the supermarket, or they can't have a food truck coming around at lunchtime because people won't serve them because they're media, politicians or police, then they're going to start having a pretty hard time. If Dan Andrews goes to the supermarket and wants to buy some groceries and the supermarket refuses to serve him, what can he do about it? There's nothing he can do except go to another supermarket, which hopefully will also refuse to serve him. And that'd be something we could do. And us normal people out there who are just out there shopping, we could also refuse to shop in any establishment that we are aware of that is serving politicians, police, or media personalities. This is a way we can push back, pull service from them. It's a good idea. It's one start anyway, and it's something that would empower people on the ground where they live, something everybody can do,
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear Tristan on the weekend at the event you couldn't make it to in Brisbane. Tristan, who organised the event, and he acknowledged the Brisbane police, who were completely honourable, they were completely respectful, they were completely professional, but he also let them know that the way this is escalating and the way the government is turning on the people, and as the people awaken, the police force are going to have to make a very clear decision, whether they're against us or where they're with us.
Yeah.
And this is what I wanted to ask you today, Max. Where do you see Australia right now? We're seeing the world in mass awakening. We talked about Berlin earlier. We've talked about what's happening in Europe. We do have the complacency in Australia. We have the she'll be right, mate. What was the term you gave Australia before?
I don't know, lucky country.
Lucky country, this sort of thing. So we know that things, they ain't right, mate, at the moment. What are your thoughts on Australia's position as far as this awakening on a global scale?
Not enough pushback in Australia. I call the place Australia, unfortunately. We've got a heavily fluoridated population. And, there's too much space. People have had it too easy. People have got big backyards. they don't see it ever coming for them. But we've got a real problem here with fascism in this country. The government is in abuse of office. What they're doing is a reckless endangerment of the public health. The people that are dying in the nursing homes in Victoria, I mean, you've got to look at what Dan Andrews is doing. He's put these people in nursing homes, he's left them alone, cut them off from their families, and basically the people in the nursing homes are even leaving them alone. They're just leaving them there to rot. That's how they're getting the figures up. You're putting people in a position where they're going to die, getting the most vulnerable people in society, putting themselves in a position where they're going to die, and then you're saying it's all COVID-19 deaths to bump up the figures. This is murder by proxy. You know, the government has turned against the people. The government is no longer a valid government. It isn't a valid government anyway. It hasn't been valid since 1973. Even when you look at the Australia Act, that further compounds the invalidness of the government. We've got a Prime Minister who swore allegiance to Her Majesty, not Her Majesty, Her Majesty. If you mess up a line when you're taking your oath of office, you're going to repeat the line. He didn't mess it up. He purposefully said that. Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of Australia, a woman who doesn't exist. We've got an invalid government who's turned against the people. So how valid is any of the law that they're using to roll out for this alleged pandemic? You know, more people have died from the lockdown than have died from any virus. And what they're doing with the roadmap to come out of lockdown, it's unattainable. You got Dan Andrews saying you've got to have no more than 5 positive cases in all of Victoria for 14 days before they'll release it down to the next stage. You know, and that's impossible. And it's not people that are dying, not people that are sick, it's just people that are testing positive. For this RNA code that they're looking for, which they haven't even identified as COVID, you've got this piece of shit, Anastasia Palaszczuk, running Queensland, who's saying you've got to have 0 cases across Australia for 28 days before she'll open the border. This is not obtainable. The RNA test that they're doing, the PCR test, can identify pretty well anybody they want to test positive for COVID. You know, you're never coming out of lockdown. That's what they're doing. This whole thing is a fraud. It's a massive, monumental fraud being carried out by the governments. And yeah, the police are going to have to figure, where is your line in the sand? Do you serve the people or do you serve this corporate entity? Because if you got into that force to uphold the law and prevent crime, well, the government at the moment is in breach of the law and they are carrying out a massive crime, reckless endangerment of public health, all of them, massive fraud. Why aren't any of the police standing up against that? Or are you just doing what you're told by the politicians? Did you come here to uphold the law, or did you come here to simply uphold the will of politicians and whatever legislation they write on paper, which is the colour of law and they claim to call law? It's bullshit. The whole thing is bullshit. So where is your line in the sand? You know, because it's got to the point, you know, with Daniel Andrews arresting people for incitement for a Facebook post, the only person who should be arrested for incitement is Daniel Andrews for inciting his people into revolution by locking them down and putting them under house arrest over an alleged pandemic, which is a provable fraud. You know, and apparently you can get in trouble for saying it's a hoax. Well, I'm not saying it's a hoax. Of course, there's 1,000 doctors in Germany who would disagree with me, who are saying it is 100% provable hoax. They're saying, doctors in Melbourne are saying it's a hoax, but I think it's more of a fraud, a massive fraud that's been perpetrated by government very, very deliberately. You know, everything that they've rolled out has been pre-planned. Go look at the Rockefeller document, the lockstep document. They talked about all of this back in 2015, what the plan would be. This is exactly what they've done. They've had all of this ready to roll out. All they needed was the trigger to implement the response. It's always been about the response. And the trigger was COVID-19, which is simply the common cold, for God's sake. A recent report came out by UCLA, which said that anybody under the age of 54 has a 19.1 million. It's 1 to 19.1 million chance of dying from COVID-19. You've got 1,000 times more chance of being struck by lightning than you have of dying from COVID-19, and they've shut the whole world down. It's a massive abuse of office, and it's so obvious that, as I've been saying to people, you can't even call it a pandemic anymore. It's more of an IQ test. You know, if you can't figure out how fake this is, then I'm sorry, but you are terminally stupid. Now, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. And so we need to call these politicians out and hold them to account. This is an abuse of office. It's a treason. You can't even call it an abuse of power. They don't have the power to do this. They've delegated themselves. They're using the office that they hold to delegate themselves powers they have no right to have. They just made this shit up as they went along. Daniel Andrews locked the whole state down when Parliament wasn't even sitting. He just decided to do it. That's called being a dictator. That's called treason. That's called fuck off, Daniel Andrews. We're coming for you. That's what should happen. You know, and if this country isn't going to do it, if this legal system isn't going to do it, then perhaps we get someone like Bosie, vote him in, we take over the legal system, we do it ourselves. And if that doesn't work, then we form common law courts and we just go and build a gallows, because it's really got to that point.
Yeah, you know? 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And we're seeing this continued genocide of the elderly in Victoria, dying alone, dying in isolation, the most vulnerable population in our communities. We're seeing a mental health crisis and suicide epidemic down there as well. We're seeing the absolute destruction of the economy, and it's all-out psychological warfare being waged on the Australian people. And I guess what gives me hope that things are turning around, that the tide is starting to turn, is the mainstream media is starting to identify this fraud. We're hearing more and more voices who have been quiet for some time, people who are, I guess, high profile down in Victoria, really starting to call this out for what it is. The Triple M interview, I don't know if you've heard that one, Max, the Triple M interview with Luke Darcy, where he completely exposed Daniel Andrews and talked to him about the 500 doctors in Victoria who want to form an independent panel and a full inquiry, and who have openly called out that this lockdown is completely useless, completely damaging, and provides no health benefits or containment to any virus whatsoever. So the tide feels like it's turning, but as far as a real shift happening in Australia, Max, what do you think it's going to take for the average person to catch on and get this stopped and I guess save our country?
Look, I think they are, you know. I mean, maybe it'll take them to push harder, but I think they are. With all the stuff that's leaking out, I mean, everywhere I go, every time I see anyone wearing a mask, any shop I go into, even when I'm getting my groceries packed at the store, I start talking about what's going on. I'm planting seeds everywhere I go. I'm getting more and more agreement from people everywhere I go. So, you know, I think the tide is turning, but we've got to realise that we're not going to get any remedy from their legal system, and by listening to them argue back and forth and thinking ScoMo's angry with Daniel Andrews and all that. No, it's all theatre for the masses. We've got to pull support from these people. Like I said, stop serving them. Stop giving them any service at all. They're not serving you anymore. The police do not serve the people. The politicians do not serve the people. The media does not serve the people. Why are you serving them anything? You have the right to refuse service, so do it. You know, push back in every way we can. You know, we've got to a real turning point here. But behind all this as well, like I've been telling people, is the breakdown of the supply chain, the food shortages that are coming, everything that's coming. You know, we're heading for a situation where all the dole payments that they've meted out to people, these are all going to stop soon. The double payments, all this stuff people are getting. They're going to get a lot of homeless people, a lot of food shortages, a lot of problems, and they're all going to blame it on COVID. People have got to understand it's not COVID. You know, it's not COVID. It's the politicians. They've done it deliberately. So, you know, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take, brother, for people to push back. But, you know, we've got to start doing it. And I think pulling service from them and continuing service to each other is one thing we can do. You know, and anybody who's getting fines for breaking any COVID regulations, even if you've got to have social distancing in your supermarket or whatever, and you're in breach of COVID codes, none of this is law. You need to challenge it all. Anybody who got a fine over the weekend of Freedom Day, if you got one of those $1,600 fines they're handing out, don't pay it. Challenge it in court, because it has no legal standing. As soon as you go to challenge it in court and tell them you want to challenge it in court, I guarantee they'll cancel the fine, because they're not going to take it to court, because they know that if you go to court with it, they're not going to win the case. So why are they going to bother going and fighting it? And if people did take them all to court anyway, you'd clog up the entire legal system, and it'd take them years to get through these cases, so they wouldn't be able to do anything else. So it's completely unviable. So, you know, everything they're doing is outside the law. How can you have any respect for the law in this country when the people who are running it themselves are not even respecting their own law? They're not even following their own codes according to the, Health and Wellbeing Act and according to the Biosecurity Act. They're not doing any of it. They're not following the procedure they're supposed to follow. So none of it's valid anyway. You know, so if it gets to that point, well, what other choice do we have to go back to common law courts or even go back to tribal law? As I've been telling people for so long now, treaty with the tribes, we're in a pretty unique situation in this country where we can fall back into tribal law, which has also been acknowledged by these parasites that are masquerading as politicians. And you can't call them politicians, you can't call them valid.
And with the warmer weather fast approaching in New South Wales, police are taking no chances, cracking down on private gatherings. From today, $1,000 fines will be issued to anybody who attends a private gathering exceeding the 20-person limit. Previously, only the host would receive the fine.
Hello everyone, this is Serene Tefaha speaking from Advocate Me. Firstly, a big thank you to all the people who have put in an application with their stories so bravely, putting forward their grievances and their complaints and sharing and daring to be united with us on this marvellous journey of claiming our rights back as citizens and residents of this beautiful nation. Unfortunately, this nation has been dominated now by agendas that have usurped the progressive and the righteous and the very moderate laws that we have that guarantee our freedoms for so long. What we've seen overnight is a degradation of these rights so radically and in such a contrast to what our laws actually provide for. What has truly shocked me in this process is that people have not been keenly aware of what is actually going on around them. And they feel in so many ways angry when they are challenged or when they're shown that perhaps those who are operating these systems have become so utterly and completely corrupted. And a lot of people ask me, you know, what are you trying to do with this class action, Serene? Well, what I'm trying to do is very simple. This is about our rights. It's about claiming our rights. And businesses and others, you know, ask me, why are you not seeking money? Why are you not going after millions of dollars against the government? That's because if we seek money, we will lose. As simple as that. And a court of this land will not provide its people and will not go up against the government to say or put a government out of funds significantly. So any kind of action that is promising people millions of dollars is in many ways lacking substance and strategy. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is we are seeing the interference and our governments being usurped very, very quickly by foreign interference and by also internally corrupt individuals. This country has become usurped. Our systems have become usurped by bullies, by people who have vested interest in various transnational organizations, who are selling ourselves off as people, as simple commodities, and bastardizing our land to foreign interests. What we're ending up seeing is the degradation of our rights and the use of science in the most appalling and shocking structure. Okay, and what we're ending up seeing, okay, is our governments and our our leaders, alleged leaders, treating us like infants, like ignorant little infants, okay, and putting fear into us, okay, and using and getting organized and using the military and using the police force like stormtroopers, okay, to instill fear in ourselves. They are dividing and conquering us so diligently and so powerfully. And a lot of us are actually allowing this to happen by not standing up and using the opportunities that are being presented before you, which is this: a class action is an opportunity for us to unite finally. They have been uniting for a very long time. Even in their bad intentions, they're uniting. Even in their bad intentions, they are actually organizing themselves so diligently. And we are acquiescing to that and saying yes to that. Oh, it's not that bad for me yet. Oh, I don't entirely agree with you, Serene. I don't entirely agree with what's happening. You know, I still think that a part of them is good. I still think that they're trying to help us. I still think that we're trying to care for our safety. What we're seeing is disproportionate. What we're seeing is we're treated as infantile. Infants being told, stay at home from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Apparently virus is more virulent at night. Apparently they tell you what's essential and what's not. Apparently they tell you when they can detain you and when not. They don't have to give you any reasons or any explanation. They've done away with your rights of review. And it's still not enough for you to move into action. It's still not enough for you to say this is crossing the line in so many ways. You're still hoping that things are going to get better. And we've removed, as a result of this, any empathy, any heart in our communications with each other. What has happened is that they've turned us against each other. What has happened is that what is scientific has become ignorance. Apparently asking why you should be masking, why you should be distancing, why is there disproportionality, why is there inconsistencies and closures, why is there detainment when people are healthy? Apparently, that's ignorance. And it's still not enough for a lot of you. It's still not enough for you to thump your fists on the table and say enough is enough. It's not enough that they're causing you mental illness. It's not enough that they're making you scared. It's not enough that they're intimidating you. It's not enough that they're infantilizing you. It's not enough. When is it going to be enough? And you have to ask yourself that question. What I've come to do is create an opportunity for us to join together, to unite. And unfortunately, this fear also breeds the tall poppy syndrome. Oh, what do you want to do here, Serene? What do you come to do? What do you know? What do I know? I know a lot about this country. I know a lot about the leadership. I know a lot about fighting corruption. I know a lot about darkness. I know a lot about being confronted with that darkness. And people trying to hurt me for challenging corruption. I know that. That's why I've come to share this with you. Because we need a point of unity. And you ask me, how are we going to be protected? Yes, I'll tell you how you'll be protected, by the poorest in this country. It's poetic justice, my class action is poetic justice. We're not seeking money because we want integrity. The poor people are at the front taking the risk because they've got nothing else to lose, and they're willing to protect the wealthy. They're willing to go in batting for you. All you need to do is sign it. All you need to do is join. There's not going to be any risk for you. And guess what? I have a lot of people who are willing to go to the front. I just don't have the team. The wealthy people. The people who feel the most fear, because you feel like you've got the most to lose. And guess what? You do. You have the most to lose. You've already lost. By not being a part of something, is by not being wanting to change, by not taking responsibility and saying, let's do this together. Let's get organized. Let's get organized. We want to do protesting. We want to get up. We want to say no to the illogical. We want to say no to the... Let's get organized. Let's get organized. Let's use the strength in our numbers. But all of us, oh no, my family members, join me. My friends that know me for years, join me. We're making change. We're making history. We're saying enough is enough. Let's take back what truly belongs to us, and let's share it, and let's teach those who are so hungry for destruction They're only destroying themselves. So, when we have so much amongst us that are corrupt, we have to reach out to them and say, enough with your corruption. We have to share this land. We have to share our resources. We have to be logical about the way we deal with things. We cannot be using these things as an excuse for a causal fatality rate of a disease of 1.38%. This is madness, what is going on in this country. It is madness, but it is planned chaos. And we're all succumbing to it. Please, come here. Please, let's be together. Come here into my heart. I want to help. I want to see your story. With together we have strength. Together we truly can stand and we can say no. No, let's reshape our lives. No to the corrupt. You've got to come now and play by the rules. You've got to come and play nice. No more bullying. No more bullying. We've got to say that together. And we've got to not be afraid. So yes, it's poetic justice, the class action, no compensation. The poorest take the lead. Oh, what's going on? Yes, what's going on is truth. What's going on is fairness. What's going on is let's go beyond money as the method of communicating with each other. And let's go back to integrity. Let's go back to rights. Let's go back to basic justice. Let's go back to transparency and accountability and loyalty and trust. So please consider my words carefully. I've come here to join us, to unite us. No more tall poppy syndrome, no more throwing each other down and judging each other. And, you know, it's a minimum of 250. You know, people, class action, everything's for free. With the other class action, yeah, they got a litigation funder who is backing a horse. And then if there's a win, they take most of your money. That's how it works, okay? This is a different class action. This is about heart, soul, integrity. It's different. It doesn't mean it's not allowed simply because it's different. It doesn't mean it's illegal simply because it's different. Okay, we're approaching this from a window of wisdom, higher wisdom. So join me. Join me. Let's do this. Let's finish this. Thank you.